Awesome. Perfect. All right. Well, I'll leave the AirPods for tonight. Awesome. All right. So tonight's webinar, we'll be talking about some crypto myths that have sort of risen with the Bitcoin's popularity. So just a quick introduction. So my name's Kate, and I work in marketing for a crypto exchange called ePocket. So ePocket actually started off as a digital wallet, and it's kind of expanded into a crypto exchange with high liquidity. So we've connected our exchange to 5 of the world's largest exchanges through API connectivity. And yeah, so we have all of their combined liquidity in one sort of wallet. So that means that you can withdraw it as fiat money quite easily. I'll just pop in a little pop-up because I think there's some new people in tonight, just with the ePocket website there as well. All right, so tonight we'll be covering, well, that's going to hide my thing. All right, let's get rid of that. All right, so tonight we'll be covering a few different popular myths, so more surrounding, I think a lot of these myths came about from misunderstandings about the technology and how the technology is built. So we'll just run over each of these sort of topic points, sort of deciphering the difference between crypto and blockchain, the sort of use cases of cryptocurrency. So whether it's only used by criminals or if like what its use case is in terms of like inflation and whatnot. So we'll go over that and exactly how it has value and what that value is used for, essentially. So firstly, we'll just go over the differences between Bitcoin and blockchain. So although blockchain and Bitcoin are intertwined in the fact that Bitcoin is coded as part of blockchain or on top of the blockchain protocol, they are very different in how they actually function. So Bitcoin, to start off, is a type of cryptocurrency or a type of digital asset, whereas the blockchain is actually the ledger that records Bitcoin's transactions. So where Bitcoin is transferring a value of money, say I want to transfer $100 to wallet B, they want to transfer $200 to wallet C, it's a transfer of value from A to B to C, XYZ. Whereas blockchain has quite a larger scope. So instead of just being able to transfer value, blockchain can actually be used to record anything. So it can be used to record, to trace property ownership, to record where like a COVID test has been in the logistics chain, and the different healthcare records. So say eventually if your like Medicare history was actually on a blockchain, like there'd be no discrepancies. So that's another area where they differ in that where the blockchain focuses on transparency, is in it's a decentralized, open, public ledger that anyone can access. Your privacy is just maintained through the use of a public key rather than like your first name, last name, personal details. On the other side of that, Bitcoin actually focuses on the concept of anonymity. So your identity is actually hidden through that public key. Pretty much Bitcoin just has that transfer of value use case, whereas blockchain can be adapted to a range of different industries, from healthcare to the finance sector. You'll see Ethereum. On Ethereum, you can use decentralized applications, non-fungible tokens, NFTs. So it's actually can be used to trace ownership through cryptocurrency. So moving on, myth number 2, cryptocurrencies are only used by criminals. Well, I assume that most people in the webinar tonight invest in cryptocurrency and aren't criminals, I hope. So while it's true that the aspects of cryptocurrencies are enticing to sort of criminals in that the anonymity of it, and there's, sort of your details aren't publicly shared, or it's harder to trace where that money has gone. It's no different to them using cash. So it's not actually cryptocurrencies that are illegal or that facilitate criminal activities. It's actual activities that are criminal. It's just a different method to use transfer of value. But because sort of cryptocurrencies are pseudo-anonymous in that each person has a public key, if someone learns that a public key belongs to, say, like a mafia head or something like that, then because of the blockchain's transparency, it means that anyone would be able to see every single transaction that public key has actually made, every single buy and sell. So it's actually, in that sort of perspective, it's actually easier to trace than traditional cash, which is what researchers found to be more popular for criminal activity to sort of use. So we'll go on. So myth number 3, cryptocurrencies aren't secure. So this myth has sort of arisen from various hackings, I guess, that have happened, and people have had their Bitcoin stolen. These hacks are usually more targeted to the crypto exchanges themselves, and the the hackers have sort of capitalized on the vulnerabilities of the exchange. It's not the actual cryptocurrency protocol itself that's been hacked. Usually it's the actual coding of whoever you've purchased that cryptocurrency through and where you're storing that cryptocurrency. So that's why a lot of people will decide to store their crypto on cold storage, just because there's less opportunity to access it, because it's like storing files on a USB equivalent. Like, unless if you lose that USB, you're in trouble. But the only way it differs from that in that you can't copy it between the two. Another thing, so the reason why that the Bitcoin protocol or crypto protocols aren't easily hackable and why they are so secure is because of the blockchain technology and the underlying factors of that. So the blockchain technology actually uses hashing. So it's like a cryptographic sort of algorithm that is completed in order to add one block onto the chain behind another block. And so each block actually holds onto the hash, which is sort of like a fingerprint, I guess, of that block. So each block actually contains the hash of the previous one. So unless someone wants to go through and change each individual hash and the hash of each consecutive block after that, it's actually incredibly hard to alter the data on that block. Additionally, it also functions as a peer-to-peer network, and this is how it's sort of decentralized as well. So each transaction actually has to be validated by a number of different nodes who verify whether that transaction seems legit and if it's correct. And if they have a sort of consensus network, and if they all confirm that that transaction seems to be valid and they deem it valid, then that block will get added to the chain and that transaction will occur. So for Bitcoin in particular, they use a proof of work protocol for that, and for that the miners actually have to complete like a mathematical problem in order to prove that they have verified that block. And that's just like an extra layer of security. So the actual blockchain itself that contains the sort of transactions of the Bitcoin or of the cryptocurrency is quite secure, but it's just if people if hackers can manage to get into the wallet security, then they have the ability to withdraw the transaction that's already happened. So this is why we really encourage at ePocket, as well as I'm sure most exchanges will encourage, that you have your 2FA turned on, just to make sure, because then that way, if someone is trying to access into your account, they can't get in there unless they have access to your mobile phone and your number generator. Okay, so we'll go on to the next one. So this is a question that we hear from like quite a few people, is whether Bitcoin can just be generated by anyone. I think when first learning about the technology, people kind of have the question of, well, if it's just code and it's not actually a tangible asset that you can touch, why can't people just create it out of nowhere? And the thing is that there's actually a lot of different versions of Bitcoin software. So one example of, I guess it's an issue or a thing that has kind of arisen out of the inability to change the coding of Bitcoin is their hard cap. So there's a hard cap of 21 million Bitcoin that is available to be mined. And there has been speculation about whether this would be increased, because we're actually reaching about, I think, 18 million at the moment. And the thing is that there's different softwares of Bitcoin, and it's not actually controlled by anyone in particular. Like, it's controlled by a number of developers and whatnot. But while the developers can improve the software with like smaller improvements, it's quite difficult to force a large change in the Bitcoin protocol, because essentially all of the nodes and all of the users are free to use whatever version of Bitcoin that they want. So if you do a massive change and entirely change the hard cap, which will change every single part, like essentially most aspects of the protocol, the blocks that those nodes are trying to verify would actually be coming up as invalid, because it would be a different protocol, essentially, a different level of it. So for this reason, like, you can't just change the code of Bitcoin. There's like safeguards in there through its decentralization, that you can't just, even the best hacker, you can't just type in, I want to create 1 million Bitcoin. Like, it's just not how it works. All right, and moving on from that is myth number 5. So Bitcoin has no value. So this is sort of building onto that notion of, if it's a digital currency and it has no tangible sort of elements to it, then how can it have value? And the same question could be asked towards fiat money, like Australian dollar, US dollar, New Zealand dollar. You could think the same thing about that. So, like, what gives money value? Essentially, it functions on like the economic principle of supply and demand. So, in simple terms, if there's too many buyers and not enough sellers, the price goes up. And if there's too many sellers and not enough buyers, the price goes down. And that's essentially what has given Bitcoin value for a long time. In addition to that, there is also the fact that it does have a hard cap. So it has a finite supply, similar to gold. So only X amount of Bitcoin can be mined. And after that, no one really knows what's going to happen after that. But due to that finite resource sort of element of it, it is often actually used by investors more frequently, especially after COVID. So that will take us on to the next myth. Number 6, Bitcoin has no real world users. So I'm just going to talk about, continue with this sort of use case. So after COVID in America, Biden has announced a bunch of handouts or payouts to its citizens to try to boost spending. But obviously that brings in stress about inflation. And so people need to like hedge their investments against inflation in case the US dollar drops. So usually Bitcoin is used, gold is a typical hedge against inflation because it does have that finite sort of cap on it, and therefore it's not really as susceptible to inflation as what other stocks are. So we've sort of seen this year that a lot of larger investors are actually purchasing large amounts of Bitcoin to hedge against that inflation. And I think that was made pretty clear when like Goldman Sachs, like they're a massive financial player, and they actually started allowing Bitcoin so yeah, as soon as you start seeing like larger financial institutions like that also backing the cryptocurrency and investing in it, you can see that it does have some potential value, beyond the IT and like skepticism that it sort of has at the moment. It's also important to note that even though it does have its dips and its corrections and whatnot, I mean, it has had still a long-term gain in value, a significant gain long-term. So, although it's quite a volatile market, it has proven to have its to hold its value over a long period of time. Myth number 7, cryptocurrencies are a scam. So cryptocurrencies themselves aren't a scam, but it is important to be cautious when you're investing, especially in like initial coin offerings. Like you need to do your research and consult with like a financial advisor that specializes in cryptocurrency prior to making any of those decisions. There are a lot of, I got this off of moneysmart.gov.au. They actually noted quite a few scams that have been going around, especially after COVID and during COVID. Sort of people didn't really have the same, people were spending more time on their phones and just generally more susceptible to hackers, to scams. So MoneySmart actually outlined that some common scams that have been going around are those that it's like fake support from celebrities or government agencies saying that you need to pay them in Bitcoin. Another one is like sort of those random accounts or random fake accounts, and they'll probably ask you, they'll say to provide a service as long as you pay them in Bitcoin. So moneysmart.gov actually says that if anything is asking you to pay them in Bitcoin, it's probably a scam. So just be cautious about that. If you are receiving any sort of anything that even the smallest gut feeling in your body might think that it is a scam or that something's not up, just double check it and do some research before you go like transferring any Bitcoin to anyone or any cryptocurrency to anyone for that matter. The last myth 8, is that investing in Bitcoin is gambling. So while it can be quite a volatile market, it's not necessarily gambling in the fact that gambling, the odds are in favor of the house, essentially, whereas Bitcoin's like nature in the market comes from that supply and demand. So there's not actually odds for and against. There's no card deck. There's no dice to try to gauge probability off of. Traders will try to sort of try to track the candlestick graph and everything, but there's no actual probabilities or odds that you can track to sort of say that it is gambling. But it's just like any investment you need to research it. Any investment, there's high risk, low risk, short-term risk, long-term risk, and it's just one of those things that you really need to research and have financial advice on if you are looking to invest, especially large sums of money. So that brings us to the end of tonight's webinar. I do just have a quick little contact us page for everyone. Just in case you do have any other questions, you are welcome to post them in the chat here. Alternatively, you can message us on WhatsApp or by text message at that phone number listed. And our email is actually support@epocket.com.au. We do, just going to pop up our, so yeah, we do have our own exchange. We are located in about 25 different countries, I believe, at the moment. And we are getting close to releasing our remittance function. So we will be looking at facilitating international transfers at very competitive commission fees. So that's very exciting to be coming out. But yeah, if you haven't downloaded our new app, we have recently released that one on the iOS and Google Play Store. Yeah, and it's looking very schmick. We've got our digital wallet on there as well as the crypto exchange. So all of the main cryptocurrencies are on there. Yeah, and like I said, it's extremely easy to liquidate that back into fiat and just withdraw that back straight into your bank account without any crazy fees, lag times. Everything's pretty much instantaneous. So it's a very exciting one to be releasing. I'm also going to pop up a link to our other webinar recordings. So our other webinar recordings are on YouTube, and this will just take you to our channel. You're welcome to subscribe or just go straight to the webinar playlist. Previous webinars talk about, we've got like a tax webinar, which is specific to Australia, where we actually had a crypto tax accountant join us. And we've also gone over Ethereum and smart contracts and general Bitcoin, blockchain and Ethereum technologies. So they're really good to sort of have a listen to if you're really just learning about cryptocurrency and you want to know more about the technology to sort of understand what you're investing in. But yeah, like I said, it's very important if you are looking to start seriously investing to seek some financial advice and make sure that you do your research beforehand. It's also important, like everyone says this, but I think a lot of people really felt it with this price drop. Don't invest more than you're willing to lose. I know a few people have really sort of struggled today or the last couple of days as the price has dropped, but like every single drop that happens, I'm sure it will spike back up shortly. So yeah, if no one has any questions, we'll finish that one up here. And thank you for joining me tonight. Yeah, it's always a pleasure to have you guys in here. And I'll be releasing, yeah, the recording tomorrow and the next fortnight's webinar either tomorrow or early next week. Awesome. Well, I'll see you in another fortnight.